I'll hit record and off we go. All right, now, yeah. So with you guys here, let's go ahead and hit screen share, and now we're set. Okay, so you guys have got to deal with these stats, right? So if you submit from now, we plateaued, and now it looks like we're going up, and it's pretty unnerving, right? Let's explain the core problem. The core problem is that as good a news as this is, and this is really great news, we are not vaccinating fast enough because it's impossible. Now, how many of you are 16 and older? Have you applied for your shot yet? A couple, three? Three times and they were all out. Was it hard to get in? Mine was, it took me 3 tries. It took me 3 weeks to get in. Yeah, so that's a problem, right? But, okay, it's opening up, and everybody in my family's got it, been had their shot now. Now, look, I'm going to thank y'all because here's the thing: I got a 99-year-old mom who's going to live to see her 100th birthday, right? I got a lot of old people; they came first. Love you guys, you're great, but family comes first. And nobody got the virus. Everybody's got the vaccine now. I got to actually hang out with my two grandkids, both have autism, for the first time in the 6 to 9 months. It's been a long time. Sunday. The thing about that is their aides who would come in, right? They have teaching assistants come in 4 days a week to teach them skills and things. They all got it, and they were younger people, college age students. So we just had to quarantine pretty much, that whole crew, and everybody's good. We made it through. But yeah, that's more important to me than being here, right? I mean, that's just obvious. Um, but it was really cool. Okay, but we're not through this yet. I had a student email me yesterday. I came out positive, so I'm quarantined for 2 weeks. It doesn't. When does this number matter? How high have we got to get this number?
60%.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, and then 60% with the next, for example, 15 to 20% who've had it already, who we think then have some immunity, but we don't know how long the immunity is going to last, right? So when Biden asked for 100 days of mask wearing, he didn't get it. We had state after state after state drop their mask mandates. And it's just going up again. And then you guys saw what happened at spring break. Hedonism is a thing. We're going to talk about when we get to the Roman part. It is look, this is not the way you deal with this. And so now we're right back with Brazil, just overnight. Now, look, let's go ahead and listen to the CDC director as of, let's see, last night. Let's see, where did she go? She's over here. All right, so here it is, last night's morning. Now, my apologies because you guys need to have this speaker. So let's get this going here.
Seen in 3 weeks. Miguel Almaguer tonight, Bill.
Okay.
Even as 95 million have received at least one vaccine dose. And President Biden says 90% of adults will be eligible for the vaccine in 3 weeks. Miguel Almaguer tonight, Bill, on the growing concerns.
Not since the deadly winter surge have so many states, 31, recorded a troubling rise in new COVID cases. Infections are up 10% nationwide. Today, the CDC director trying to keep her composure.
I'm going to pause here. I'm going to lose the script, and I'm going to reflect on the recurring feeling I have of impending doom. We have so much to look forward to, so much promise and potential of where we are, and so much reason for hope, but right now I'm scared. I know what it's like as a physician to stand in that patient room, gowned, gloved, masked, shielded, and to be the last person to touch someone else's loved one because their loved one couldn't be there.
With signs of trouble brewing in the Northeast and Midwest, doctors in parts of Washington state already fear they're entering a fourth surge.
So that's the thing. Are we going to have a fourth surge?
But the numbers haven't slowed Americans down. More than 1 million have flown every day for the last 18 straight days, despite CDC guidance to avoid air travel.
In quotes, it's spring break. Why are people traveling? You know, it's spring break. Okay, so, you know, how many times have we got to learn the same lesson over and over and over again? You know, how many times, you know, just a simple task, wearing a mask. So it's just going to linger and linger and linger. So, I mean, economy's going to recover slower. Everything's going to recover slower. Next fall is an issue. Some universities are not going to let students back live unless they have vaccines, right? Now, the problem is the vaccine is a personal choice, right? So, I mean, not everybody wants to get a vaccine, or maybe should, who knows? But unless we get to 65% to 70% vaccination and people who've been sick who've recovered, this goes on. This just goes on. So you have to reflect that in your paper on that first essay, that we may be entering a fourth wave. Four, you know, and this is not happiness when we look at what we've done. And now, you know, India, of course, has 5 times our population, and they have the same number of cases per day. So we'll see how this goes. Good news is, look at where Utah's done. I mean, this is pretty exciting stuff when you think about it, where we were just a little bit ago, right? And now everybody's 16 and up. Now, why can't you do younger kids? I got the junior high kids down at the other campus. Why can't we vaccinate them too? They haven't tested it yet at those ages. We don't know if it's safe, right? So they're doing that now. It's only Pfizer too, 16 and up. So if you get your shot right now, it'll be Pfizer. My wife had Pfizer and my son had Pfizer. They did really well with it. I had the Moderna. Okay, well, let's now get to the regularly scheduled lecture. So let's back up just a little bit and look at where we're at. Look, let's be honest, okay? There's 3 elements of power. That if you're going to be a superpower, that's what you got to have. You have 1, 2, 3, right? So we talk about diplomatic power, economic power, military power, and national unity, though, is just an understood base to this whole thing. Well, how are we doing on this national unity thing?
That's like a joke.
Why? Why is it a joke?
Because
I mean, why should this be a problem? When I was a kid, we had national unity. I got to be honest, especially when it came to foreign policy. Country, we had it. Where did it go?
politics.
Explain.
Well, because both sides are kind of just
Both sides. There's sides here on
Yes.
coronavirus.
Democratic Republic, right? Democrat, Republican. There's 2 parties that can't get over their partyship, and they're still just.
Is that the whole story?
Yes. Well, no. If you look at the past,
But see, this is what's different now. We can have these kinds of discussions, right?
Right.
So good job getting it started. Go for it.
if you think about it, if you had 2 individuals and they both have different opinions on the same thing, that's okay. That happens. That's life. Everyone has.
Everybody has a different. How many of you have a difference of opinion with somebody else? How many of you have then a bias? Right? Everyone's got one. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. In this country, we what? We relish that. The First Amendment asks us to not all think the same. It's important not to all think the same. The minute we start thinking all the same, we lose our edge, right? How do you get a country to all think the same? How do you do that? Could be, but we're talking about if everyone belongs to that, right? If everyone belongs to one denomination, was there any time in history when that was true? Ancient Egypt, right? We talked about, you guys didn't have me for world history, did you? Ancient Egypt, did they have one set of beliefs for 3,000 years? Yes, they did. What's the more prevailing way to get people to all agree today?
Limit the press.
Any more thoughts?
Military force. Usually.
Yeah, I told you about Myanmar, right?
Mhm.
I told you coups are easy, revolutions are hard. On Saturday, the military shot 100 people indiscriminately. Killed 100 people. So you can force it. And we don't want to go that way, do we? Okay, so we want this diversity of opinion. But at some point, facts have to what? Facts have to count for something. You have to look at the facts. You can't sit there and like my favorite software thing. Facts don't lie. Data don't lie. And when you're looking at this right here, that don't lie. And yet, when I was in Southern Utah, I was there for a month. Nobody wore a mask unless they had to go into a store. It was just, they're done. They're done with it. But the virus ain't done. So why can't we even reach some consensus of national unity on our own safety, on our own security, and the impacts it's going to have, as you wrote, on our own economy? It's a perplexing time. It's just hard for me to get my head around, because we used to lead the world in infectious disease. Now, here's the next thing too. This idea of diplomatic, economic, military, right? We just talked a little bit about China. We talked about how their influence is growing. We talked about how they, for example, went from basically way down in terms of the world's economy to passing the United States in 2014 in terms of producing more goods, more services, more stuff, right? Okay, now, question is then, that I asked you in the last essay, is the American century over then? Because if you don't have the same level of economic power, can you exercise the same level of diplomatic power? Now, we do have the most undisputed military on the planet, that's for sure. Where can we use it? How can we use it effectively? How successful were we at occupying and securing Afghanistan after 20 years? There's limits to military power. The Athenians learned that the hard way. The Persians learned that the hard way. Russia, Soviet Union learned that the hard way when they invaded Afghanistan, spent 9 years, got nowhere, and it cost them a fortune, and was one of the things that triggered their demise, right? So we have a situation here where we have got to look at these three elements and figure out where we fit in. So let me ask you a serious question. Where are we number one? I just love Americans. No, USA, we're number one. What are we number one in? What are we the best at?
Opinion, I guess.
As what?
Opinion.
yeah, maybe so. I mean, let's be honest, you know, we express ourselves, and that's to me, that's a strength, right? But what are we number one in? Are we number one in economic power right now? No, we're not. And we're just coming to the realization of that, right? Okay, but China has 1.5 billion people. So maybe are we still number one in economic ability per person? You see how data, you know, you got to look at data in different ways, right? You can't just look at it in one way. But let's look at this. Which country has the highest standard of living per person then? Get your phones out, because you're going to have to research this. So get your phones out, Chromebooks if you have them, but phones are best. Go ahead and look it up. Which country per person has the highest standard of living? I think little teeny countries, postage stamp ones, come in higher at first, but let's go ahead and take a peek. Let's figure out where we're number one, where we're the best. Okay, so when it comes to per person, in terms of income level, and that kind of thing, where are we at? Who's number one?
Denmark.
Denmark usually comes on top. I have Norway, right? Finland sometimes comes up on
I
there.
have Switzerland.
Say it again.
Switzerland.
Okay. Where are we on that list? If you have a list.
15.
Denmark, Norway, some of those countries. We're 15. Okay. per capita. All right, now let's talk about this. Which countries have the highest performance on math tests? Who's number one in math?
I'm gonna guess Japan. Just a random guess.
That's a good guess, but I think it's actually, which countries score the best on math or math tests? Be the best in math. Oh, I gotta get back here.
It's China and then Singapore.
China and Singapore, okay? So in math, it's China and Singapore. Where are we?
Hold up.
Where are we at? Now, you cast exception to the rule, right? What's that?
25th.
We're 25th in math. Is that a problem?
Not necessarily.
If you believe in science, technology, and engineering, go find out which countries are the best at STEM education: science, technology, engineering, and math. So we're looking up, for those at home, we're looking up, where we rank in terms of these different metrics.
It says that the top country with STEM degrees, like from college, is the USA.
Well, from colleges, we do really well, right? And a lot of people send their people here to go to our universities from different countries, right? But we had, I don't know if you guys are getting the same data I've got here, but we found this site. Most students choose STEM degrees. Tunisia is number one per capita. Germany, Singapore, India, Russia, UK, and then USA. Wait a minute, we got a problem. Okay, so look at China, right? They don't share their stats. They don't share their stats on this one. But we're definitely down the list. Okay, now let's talk about healthcare. Who's got the best healthcare system in the world? And first of all, let's get down to metrics. How would you assess that? What data points do you look at in terms of healthcare? I had a rousing discussion with one class who said, no, we have the best healthcare system. Okay, with coronavirus, do we? No. I mean, that's obvious. We blew this, right? So when it comes to healthcare for the whole country, public health, whatever kind of health, we're, way down the list on this. We used to be number one in infectious disease control. That was just a short decade ago. What happened? Now we're among the top 10 worst, right? And that's per capita and gross total. So it's just like, that's okay. So do we have the best healthcare system when it comes to infectious disease? Obviously not. What other metrics would you look at? Yes.
So this one said that it was measuring based on cost and patient satisfaction.
Interesting.
So how satisfied people in their country were, and France was number one.
Who's number one?
France.
Really? So this is in terms of customer satisfaction, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I've heard the CSAT score. That's what you call it, CSAT? That's fascinating. Where are we in CSAT, man? Where are we on that list?
Hold up, let me just find it.
I love CSAT because cultures.
Probably like
We're
163.
37.
We're what?
37.
37. So we're 37 in satisfaction. We're near the bottom in infectious disease control. And the other two metrics you have to look at if you're looking at healthcare outcomes, right? Longevity. The best healthcare systems keep their people living longer and healthier, right? So let's look at that. Who's got the longest life expectancy? Which countries? By the way, I love that CSAT. I haven't heard the CSAT at all. I had no idea. So France leads the CSAT. Okay, we got Monaco. I heard Monaco. What's that?
Monaco, yeah.
And what's next? Let's get a bigger country because that Monaco's pretty small, but still, that's good for them, right?
One of the top results is Japan.
Japan's up there. Hong Kong. Let's pick Japan. What's Japan's male and female longevity?
For male, it's 81.91.
And what is it for females?
gonna be like 93.
Okay.
Well,
That's
actually,
Japan.
that was a guess.
That was a guess, you're
I had
guessing?
no
I
idea.
mean, that seemed high to me when you said it.
That's me. That's me making comment about
That's
how
okay,
we
that's okay.
would typically live longer.
It's 88.09.
Hey,
Now, you weren't that far off.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, now, where's the United States on that? So you're looking at these metrics in terms of where we're number one. Data don't lie. Let's get down to the data. Where is the United States?
It's
US
46 with 81 for females and 76 for men.
So for females, it's what? 80 what?
81.
And what are men?
And men it's 76.65.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
76.
76. Okay, guys, that's a big spread on the aggregate. And we lost one full year last year. It was the deadliest year in American history, and our life expectancy dropped a full year. What's contributing to this? A lot of drug use in that. There's a lot of lifestyle choices in that. But, you know, that means the healthcare system's got to respond to more coronary disease and all that kind of stuff. Now, here's the biggie. The big one is infant mortality. Do we have the best healthcare system when it comes to infant mortality? And trust me, I know we do a great job with this. You know, having had in my lifetime situations where we've had to pull out all the stops, right, to save a young one. So I'm not saying that this one we're doing terribly.
Monaco, Iceland, and Japan are the top 3.
Monaco, Iceland, and Japan again. And where's the United States on this one? And you can't look at overall healthcare unless you look at infant mortality. Everybody see it? Wrong. So I mean, you guys got to search for us too, so we get this going a little quicker.
It only goes up to 20.
Yeah. Yesterday they came up with it, and it was below Japan, of course, but it was still not too bad, right? And it can always be improved, right? Okay, so you have where does the United States rank in world data in infant mortality?
36 countries, we were 33rd.
We're 33rd?
Out of 36.
Out of 36 that they surveyed.
Yeah.
So of 36, we're 33rd?
Yes.
So that means, well, there's at least then 33 countries ahead of us in infant mortality. No doubt Norway, no doubt, you know, Finland, no doubt some of those Benelux countries. Okay, so what's the point of all this is that, okay, how are we going to maintain our edge? You look at this problem we've got, right? Does the world look right now at the United States as the American president as the leader of the free world? No, not for a bit. It started to deteriorate when we invaded Afghanistan in 1991. It's been deteriorating ever since. And trust me, the Germans would like their chancellor to be recognized as the leader of the free world. Right? Now, what gives Germany such an advantage? They are the primary economic engine of the European Union, 27 countries. They're the ones that really control the funding system, the money system, the euro, the banking system there. Without Germany, the European Union falls apart. England, I know they did their Brexit thing. They're going to pay a big cost for that. Their young people really are upset about that because now they can't travel to Europe and work in Europe whenever they can get a job. It's a lot harder now. But the truth of the matter is, they're bigger than we are. The European Union, mostly democracies, they're more people. And scale matters. When you're only 4.25% of the world's population, right, you got an uphill battle economically. That's why India is going to pass us too soon. Why? Because they've got, well, let's look at it this way. When you look at total people in what we would define as the middle class, China has more people in their middle class than we have people, period. And the middle class is what drives the economy. So when they've got a bigger middle class than we do, and then they have a surplus roughly a billion people, who are still working their way out of poverty. Do you know China brought more people out of poverty in the last 20 years faster than any other country in the history of the world? Because they started so low, right? So all of a sudden now they've got this huge thing, and they are so entrepreneurial. Are they communists? No. Starting with this trip, of course, we talked about this with Nixon. When Nixon traveled to China, I think I got the image here, I don't. Okay, but when he traveled to China in 72, they changed on a dime. When I was there in the 1980s, they were more capitalist than we were. You should have seen all the businesses, the thriving, the small industries, the big industries. And now they have the biggest industries in the world and some of the richest people in the world now, right? I mean, the person that owns Alibaba makes basically Bezos look like a small-time player. And they're taking plane load of vaccine to other countries. When you have a robust economy growing as fast as theirs is, then what happens is you can do a lot of things. It expands your ability to expand your military navy. And so guess what? They're building islands in the South China Sea out of nothing. This came out of yesterday's discussion in the class. Literally, there's these atolls that are kind of semi under the water. They're filling them in and building islands in the South China Sea and calling it China in international waters. You can do that if you have money. And you can invest in countries all over the world like they're doing. And yet, we're cutting back. Let's look at the education system. The United States, I'm going to go to our data first, and this is a little bit of an apples and oranges problem here because I couldn't get parallel data. But when we look at this, 48% of Americans will get a bachelor's degree right now, 48%. We are undereducated. How in the world are we going to compete when China graduates 25 million a year from college? 25 million a year. So if we have half, so let's say, generously speaking, 160 million people with a college degree. That's, by the way, overstated because you're talking about young people, so it's really close to 100 million. But let's go ahead and say 150 million. They will graduate that many in 6 years. So that means they have more potential people to do science, technology, and engineering than we do. If you're from India and you can't get into the #1 school of tech in that country, it's like 100,000 people apply for 1,000 positions. I know because we try to hire people out of there as often as we can. The truth of the matter is this: they come here as their B school. They pick Stanford and UCLA as their B school. Watch out for India. They're next. And what does it mean? I don't know. Comment.
So I'm just wondering, you were using different measurements?
In this case, it's a bit of an apples and orange thing. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just couldn't get parallel data. This is how many people they have in college right now.
Do you know what percent that is though? Like what percent are graduating?
Well, see, and so you're going the per capita argument, and I'm going the aggregate argument. And so that was a good thing. You know, you bring it up. Per capita, are we better educated than they are? Good question. I have no idea on that. I doubt we are, because their education system is insanely good. And because that's why I went there in the 90 days to look at their education system. And can I tell you this? Korea's kicking our butt too. And so is Japan. Their students work harder, they work longer, they have a whole other month of school in South Korea. Let's look at overall educational outcomes. Who has the best school system? We'll see if we can find it. But I like your point. You're saying, hey, wait a minute, are we mixing apples and oranges here? And yes, we were. I kind of said that up front. But what I'm saying is, on aggregate, you can still win the per capita argument, but are you going to win the volume? It takes lots of people to create the tech of the future.
Denmark, then South Korea.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Finland, then Denmark, then South Korea.
There you go. And I'm surprised Finland and Denmark always, look, they're up in every category. So where's the best place to live? Where are you the happiest? Put that one in and then we'll take your comment. Go ahead. Go ahead right now while we're looking at, where are they the happiest? Go ahead.
That's about 55% of China's population.
Is that about what it is? Wow, see, that's impressive. Thank you for doing the math, right? So you brought those metrics together for me. Thank you.
It says that Finland is considered the world's happiest.
Finland's the world's happiest country.
Followed by Denmark and Switzerland.
Followed by Denmark. And Switzerland, by the way, lovely economy, per capita, they're much better off than we are. It's an amazing place. I got to visit and race there. All right, now here's the point, right? What do we do? And you're president of the United States. How do you fix all this? Right? How do you fix all this? That $1.9 trillion is going to help a bunch, but we got to get our act together. Now, I'm not talking about you specifically, because you here at this STEM school are the exceptions to a very big rule. But we had an interesting conversation that's in the campus, you know, you guys that had me down there. I was teaching the world history there now. And this one kid, he goes, well, I heard like you were really strict and stuff. And I said, where'd you hear that from? And was I strict last year? No, I don't think I was. I'm not strict here like I was at my former schools. Because at the former schools, if you could get 50% of the students to complete all their work, you were doing great. Here, it's 95% get their work in with no due dates, right? So that's a big difference. So I can lighten up a lot. But he said, yeah, I got my hair cut. And the barber said, oh yeah, I had Mr. Barksdale, da 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 da. He was the strictest teacher. Right? So I said, hey, go find out more because I love this, right? Go ahead. I want to hear all about this. But that's the thing is that here I don't have to be. You're the exception to the rule. Literally no deadlines. And I'm getting more work turned in faster than I did when I had deadlines. There's always 3 or 4 that, you know, are going to wait. Most of them will cross the finish line with a good grade too, but they'll wait. But why can't every school in America be like this one? And if we're going to compete, this is what we got to have. So you're Joe Biden. How do you deal with this problem? Well, first of all, you confront China head on. So this is, this is the first meeting between China and the Biden administration. They're meeting right now in Anchorage, Alaska. First day, I think, was Monday. It did not go well. And we have to read this. Got off to a rocky start. You guys see this? Okay. Biden's happy with the Secretary. Blinken is the Secretary of State. Name you have to remember.
No, Trump is the Secretary of State.
Okay. Exchange insults. I guess it was last Thursday. So we start out insulting each other. It's a great way for the 2 biggest economies in the world to behave, right? All right, let's go ahead. Let's keep going here. Deep concerns with the actions of China. What are those concerns? What concerns do we have about China? And with that, I'm going to erase this board and we'll start all over again. Why does China, by the way, Russia is not a big threat in terms of the economy. They're like 14th, 15th or something. They only have 150 million people and their population is declining. Russia's a paper tiger. Yes, they have nuclear weapons. That's an issue. But by the same token, we're giving Russia way too much control in our social media and everything else, right? Messing with us because they want to mess with us because they want to pretend that they're a big superpower again, but they're not. United States, China, Japan, India, Germany, these are the big economies. These are the ones you worry about, right? What problems do we have with these guys? Child labor?
Well,
I don't know that they
not
have
anymore.
child labor.
Not anymore,
But-
that used to be an issue.
Yeah, of course.
It is in India.
But yeah, in India, it's a problem. I don't think in China it is anymore. So what else? I mean, that was in the past, yes, for sure. But I'm thinking of another one related. You guys know about the Uyghurs? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that one of our biggest problems with them is just that we're so close as we compete with them. So we're like, probably they're doing the same, we're looking for all of the issues and what they're doing.
Right.
So that we can be like, oh, but look how bad they are.
Is China playing by the rules?
It depends on perspective.
Keep going. Say it. Finish the thought. And with the mask, I can't see who's talking sometimes. So who made that comment? On the perspective? Yeah.
I was was gonna say something about intellectual property in China. It's not very common to like care about other people's intellectual property.
Do they care about intellectual property? No.
They'll execute things.
That's something in the US Constitution, and they're going, hey, if it's a good idea, we're taking it, right? Do they do corporate espionage? Do they hack businesses all over the world and steal ideas? Yes. Do we?
Not as much. It's not, we hide it better. Yeah, we hide it better.
It's only wrong fucking cop.
We know that Russia did a huge hack of all of our systems, right? And they're a small country. China has more engineers than that. They could shut down our power grid tomorrow, but we could shut theirs down too.
It's already off.
Laptop with no charging cord, just like everything's disconnected and you have battery power, it doesn't matter.
Well, there's something called Wi-Fi. You kind of need that.
Well, these are interesting points. Let's kind of keep the argument going. What rules? Who established the rules for international trade?
Nobody.
The United States after World War II, when we had the dominant economy and produced 50% of all the manufactured goods in the world, we used that to our advantage, just like Athens did with the Delian League. Now that's come apart. Rules are made by one team, and the other team doesn't necessarily feel obligated to follow them. So here we go. So we're all upset. Here we go. Cyber attacks, economic coercion of our allies. When you have, okay, let's put it to you this way. What if China decided to play hardball with the United States and stop the export of iPhones to America?
That would be pretty great. We wouldn't have to deal with that.
Then we'd all have to go to Android, right? They could do that. How much of our stuff comes from China? Look at the leverage that gives them over us then. So previously we tried to boycott certain items. We did tariffs and that they retaliated by basically ripping apart our soybean product. They basically, we're going to just not buy any soybeans for a while, see what that does to your agriculture. Down it went. When you are the dominant economy and most of the stuff in the world comes from you, you have leverage. If you are 4.5, 4.25% of the world's population and your manufacturing is way down from what it was, you don't have leverage. So this is a dilemma. Oh, he's criticizing us. Yang Jieqi. He criticized U.S. democracy and domestic racial tensions. You guys know that yesterday, the trial of George Floyd's accused killer started. Does the world look at the United States as having the high moral ground when it comes to human rights? This is a problem in the Cold War too, because while we were going through a civil rights movement and trying to get people just the basic right to vote in those 11 southern states, or even eat at the same restaurants, or go to the same schools or whatever, Soviet Union's going, we don't have that problem here. And you're lecturing us on human rights. See, this isn't working anymore. The world does not look at us as the leader in human rights. Not since all of our cameras are taking footage of everything that possibly can go wrong. And so this is, and democracy, by the way, democracy kind of sucks. Oh, wait a minute. Does this sound a little bit like the Spartans and the Persians? The Athenians, democracy is great. Look at all we can do. Persians are going, autocracy. That's the fight we have here. It's the same fight. It hasn't changed in 2,000 years. So here is President Biden at his news conference, and I promised to play you guys this news conference. And we're going to go ahead and play here. Listen to what he is proposing as solutions. It's also interesting. I want you to listen carefully. Listen to these questions coming from this reporter. Excuse me? Those are not really great questions. Yes, they are treating the Uyghurs, who are Muslim minority from the western part, the western part of China, And they're putting them in concentration camps. It's a huge human rights violation. There's lots of problems here. There's no question about it. China has no checks and balances, right? Look what they're doing to suppress Hong Kong. Hong Kong, they want home rule essentially. And yet they have now the best facial recognition software on the planet in China. And they're able to just take a drone over and get pictures of everybody and arrest them later. They perfected that. So yeah, they're guilty of huge human rights violations. Forced labor, which you alluded to, I thought you'd go to this situation here. I thought you were close to that. So I applaud you for that. But let's go ahead and just listen, A, to the questions, but then notice how Biden has got to sidestep those questions because they're loaded and has to come up with solutions that actually might work. And so I want you to be very careful to listen to what those solutions are that he's proposing. Here we go.
In office for a couple months. There's obviously the meeting in Alaska that was a little theatrical, and there's the continued human rights abuses. So today, I'm wondering, are you more likely than you were when you came into office to maintain tariffs on China? Are you considering banning imports of forced labor products? And would you consider cutting off U.S. investment or Chinese access to international payment systems?
Look, they're each specifically legitimate questions, but they only touch a smidgen of what the relationship with China really is about. I've known Xi Jinping for a long time. Allegedly, by the time I left office as vice president, I had spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader had, because President Obama and the Chinese President Hu decided we should get to know one another, since it was inappropriate for the President of the United States to spend time with the Vice President of another country. But it was obvious he was going to become the new leader of China. So I spent hours upon hours with him alone with an interpreter, my interpreter and his, going into great detail. It's very, very straightforward. Doesn't have a Democratic with a small d bone in his body, but he's a smart guy. He's one of the guys like Putin who thinks that autocracy is the way to the future. Democracy can't function in an ever complex world. So when I was elected and he called to congratulate me, I think to the surprise of the China experts who were his people on the call as well as mine listening, we had a 2-hour conversation for 2 hours. And we made several things clear to one another. I made it clear to him again, what I've told him in person on several occasions, that we're not looking for confrontation, although we know there will be steep competition. 2, that we'll have strong competition, but we'll insist that China play by the international rules. Fair competition, fair practices, fair trade. Thirdly, in order to compete effectively, I indicated that we're going to deal with China effectively. And we're going to need 3 things to do that. I tell them our people. First, we're going to invest in American workers and American science. I said that all through the campaign. I say it again, and I'm setting up my administration to be able to do that, which is that, back in the 60s, we used to invest a little over 2% of our entire GDP in pure research and investment in science. Today, it's 0.7%. I'm going to change that. We're going to change that.
Now think about this. Where do we go from 2% GDP investment to 0.7? And China is spending so much more in the aggregate. You can go use the per person argument if you want, but it doesn't really matter in this case, because it's how many engineers can you put on a problem? And they can put many more engineers than we can. In our little company here, we needed to expand our engineering. We had to go to Seattle because you just don't graduate enough engineers here in Utah to keep this operation going. Finally, we had to go to Europe, went to Poland. I think it's up to 300 now engineers in Poland. Why Poland? Wicked smart, great engineers, and about half the cost. how many engineers does it take to attack the American grid or banking system or whatever? Doesn't take very many. And when you have people engineering, working on these big problems, if you're not investing, and I can't believe we've let it drop to that point. What is wrong there? These, by the way, these are opportunities for you. This is great stuff for you in your graduate school, because that's where the money's going to go, is in educational research and that kind of stuff. So that's brilliant news for you. Okay.
The future lies in who can, in fact, own the future as it relates to technology, quantum computing, a whole range of things, including the medical fields. And so what I'm going to do is make sure we invest closer to 2%. One of the reasons why I've set up the PIAB, the President's Board of Scientists and what, again, is we're going to invest in medical research, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, the things, industries of the future, artificial.
This is going to help us with our deficit in medical. Darn right, it's going to make a difference, right? And let's keep going.
Intelligence, quantum computing, biotech, and we're going to make real investments. China is out investing us by a long shot because their plan is to own that future. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to reestablish our alliances, and I've been very clear with them. It's not anti-Chinese, and we've talked about it. I want to make sure that, for example, later today, after this, as a matter of fact, shortly after this, which is fine, we're going close to an hour. I'm happy to go longer, but one of the things that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be speaking with 27 heads of state in Europe. And very shortly.
He's talking to the EU.
So I don't know the exact time.
He wants us in with the EU.
Earlier this month, and apparently it got the Chinese attention. That's not why I did it.
Now,
I met with our allies.
previously, when Biden was vice president, we had 11 nations in the Pacific Rim involved in an economic alliance. The thing is, we can't beat China alone. There's no way. We have to do it with alliances. Just like you can't beat Persia unless you have the Delian League, right? And so that's what we got to do. So we've got to make these alliances with Australia, with Japan, with South Korea, and whatever, to offset this colossus that we're now facing. So diplomacy is key here. Diplomatic power, combined economic power. Canada, Mexico, the United States, Chile, go again, Australia, Indonesia, put Vietnam together, you got a shot. Okay, we'll pick it up later. Welcome back for me. This is fun. And thank you guys for jumping in, and great job on your stats. Thank you guys. It's fun to see you again. Ron? Thank you guys.